Hello everyone, this is Sir Eisenstein, Captain of the Iron Hands. Today, we'll be looking into the best value crates in the game for new players. Before we start, please remember that every single faction in this game can be good, and capable of playing all the way up to High Terra. This guide is based on my personal experience, and feedback from a couple of battle brothers I'd fight along with. And we'll be taking into account how easy it is to play the set factions in the set crate without requiring most of the legendaries and extensive game knowledge. Lastly, before we start, a quick tip. If you're after a specific neutral card, click on it and look at the logo behind the description. For example, if you go to our slider here, if you look at behind the logo here, it's gonna tell you the logo is going to tell you which crate that neutral card belongs to. Bear in mind, I will not take account of the neutral cards in this guide, but hopefully if you're after per se Kaizulane, you know that it belongs to whatever crate this is. I believe this is the Dark Angels ones. Let's go. So straight off the bat, if you're looking at the crates, every single one of them contains 3 factions, except for the first one, the original game's Isvan 3 crate, which has 4. Now, at the first instance, this might look like a good thing, but it's actually not. Because if you are trying to collect only a specific faction, let's say World Eaters here, now you have 3 other factions you're pulling cards from, instead of 2 from the other crates. So instead of having 33% chance of having, let's say, salamanders here, you now have 25% chance of getting cards from that said faction. So this is a bit of a disadvantage for this crate. And quick note, for the neutral cards, this tends to be the best crate as it has the game's sort of the core cards embedded to it. But today, as I mentioned earlier, I will be focusing only on what legions you're getting out of it. So starting with the base one, you have 4, so it's a bit of a disadvantage. But you do get starting the Sons of Horus, which is quite easy to play, straightforward faction that doesn't necessarily require all the legendaries, which is one of the criteria I'm looking for. You might need the 8 energy Vengeful Spirit card that deals, a good amount of damage. But other than that, not all the cards are essential, and you can customize it quite a bit. And all of the warlords, starting, the Loken, which everyone has, is also a quite competitive warlord as well. Moving on to the Emperor's Children. Now, these are good. This is a good faction, but in my opinion, it does require a good number of legendaries to make it to work. And on top of that, you need to combo your cards. Now, it's a good faction to learn the game, how to make combos and etc. But it's not the most beginner friendly one. Next up, the World Eaters. Now, this is not my personal style, the face bashing, keep attacking opponent. However, if you are a new starter, World Eaters is probably one of the easiest factions to play, on top of being one of the most competitive factions in the game as well. You can literally create a random World Eaters deck with any one of their warlords, and that's probably going to carry you to Lower Terra in quite quick time. And lastly, we have the Death Guard. I do like Death Guard, but their games tend to be on the slow side, especially with Mortarion, for example, and you do sort of need a set of cards that comes with it as well. All of these 4 are quite strong factions, but Death Guard and the Emperor's Children is not my favorites to recommend for a new starter in the game. Of course, if you like the lore of Emperor's Children, go for it. End of the day, this is just an advice. Overall, very strong deck, very strong crate, as you're getting 2 very good factions, but the other 2 is not that easy to play. Moving on to Isvan 5. This is probably going to be my most favorite one. mainly because you are getting the salamanders, and in my personal opinion this is the easiest faction to play for a new starter in the game. It's quite forgiving. You don't necessarily need any legendaries with it. You can just dump a couple of cards onto the board and play along, and they can be quite competitive as well, and very, very easy to play. No hidden combos, no sort of overcomplicated mechanics, just straight easy to play and very good cards as well. Iron Hands, while not the strongest faction in the game at the moment, they're still a good faction to play. Again, their cards is quite easy to play. They're not very hard, and just overall enjoyable faction with the abilities you're getting out of them. The Raven Guard, on the other hand, can be a bit more tricky, as they do require a number of legendaries for their warlords, and they could be a bit more situational as well, in terms of you need to plan your stealth, you need to plan you know, when to use your cards a bit more than the other two faction. But all three are very competitive, very easy to play factions, and this is probably going to be my most recommended crate for a new starter. If you want to, you know, climb the ladder, this one after the Isvan 3 and Isvan 5, these will be the top two in my opinion. Now moving on, Extermination crate. So with this one, it's a bit more of a tricky situation, because you are getting the iron warriors, which are strong, but you do need a number of good cards with it, and they're not the most forgiving faction either. Out of all of their warlords, Perturabo is obviously the best one, but the other ones, and the non-legendary ones, are not necessarily that strong, and they're a bit tougher to play in the current environment if you're not playing it in a certain way. However, this is probably the best faction in this crate. Alpha Legion can be very complicated if you want to play it as per se trap deck or card draw decks, or if you want to play it as, there's a number of ways to play it, the Alpha Legion. Basically, you can play it as a basic troop deck, you can play it as trap decks, and it can get quite confusing with all of their combos and what to do. I know some people find it quite easy. To this date, I still haven't figured out how to make them extremely successful myself. This is a shortcoming of me, but I don't think they are a beginner friendly faction at all. And the Night Lords, they are similar to your Raven Guard here in terms of the stealth, in terms of abilities that, and the cards that blocks your opponent attacking you for a while. But they are more card dependent than the Raven Guard, and they are a little bit harder to play and not as competitive in my personal opinion. So this one, not the one of the strongest crates. Moving on, Prospero. Now this one is an interesting one. This was actually the first expansion I received in the game. I joined when the Extermination was in it, and this was the first sort of expansion I had yet to feel. And Space Wolves are quite good. They're fairly easy to play. They're similar to your World Eaters in regard how you will play it in the early tiers, early levels, but a little bit more card intensive and a little bit more combo intensive as well. It could be a good teaching faction for these attacking type players, but not an easy one to play. The Thousand Suns, they bring the second energy. This is the first faction that you will have a second energy pool, which is your psychic energy, which makes things quite complicated very quickly in my opinion, because not only you're managing your energy cards, now you're also managing cards from your psychic energy pool. And because you have access to two different energy pools, your cards in the standard energy pool are also adjusted related to that as well. You don't necessarily have all these very strong cards in terms of stats. However, you don't really need any sort of legendaries with the guys anyway. There is only probably the one for energy legendary that could be very, very good, but other than that, the legendaries are not very necessary for this one. And moving on to one of my favorite ones, the Custodes. This is not a beginner faction at all. Similar to the tabletop game, they are a little bit hard to play because of their sentinel mechanic. So you're going to be, if you go too hard with them and you don't have the necessary combos or cards or skills, you will realize that you're running out of cards quite quickly because of their sentinel ability. It blocks you from drawing cards. So they're a little bit of a tricky faction to play as an early player, and if you don't have the cards with it, they can get quite tough. So this crate, again, I will skip if I was a beginner, but if you wanted to learn a bit of a combos with the space falls, or you want to learn more about the second energy pool, it's not necessarily that bad. Next up, we have Cult. This is one of the stronger ones, in my opinion. You do get World Eaters, which is, at first they were quite weak. At the moment, they're not too bad, to be honest. You can create a number of good competitive decks out of them that doesn't require legendaries. They're not necessarily that hard to play, but at the same time teaches you to go for some special combos, and overall a decent faction to learn a different playstyle than the previous ones, in my opinion. Ultramarines are a little bit more tricky because of their mechanic. Basically, all the other factions, you're trying to get ahead with putting troops first, whereas with the Ultramarines, you want the enemy to have troops on the board first, so you can trigger the abilities of your troops. So they're a little bit more tricky to play, and I don't think they're necessarily an easy to play faction. Moving on to the next one, it's the Orphans of War. Now these guys, they are, I think, easy to play and very competitive as well. They are very straightforward. They don't necessarily have a special combo, it's just very good cards, and all of their warlords are competitive. You just put your troops in and get on with your thing. So I think overall this is a very good crate because you're getting fairly decent factions. Although Ultramarines are a bit more trickier to play, the Orphans of War versus it just alone by themselves. So I will put this one behind these two as a third spot. Moving on will be the Malevolence crate. This is the one that you get the infamous Blood Angels, the demons of the Runestorm, and the White Scars. I will be honest, I don't think this is very easy factions to play, all of them. Reason behind it is the Blood Angels, you do need cards. They play in a certain way. I don't think they're very easy faction to play against, play with. The Runestorm, they have very strong troops, but the main problem with them is you cannot use any neutral cards except for the Chaos. Now, with all of the factions in the game, you have access to three different neutral cards. But as soon as you choose the Runestorm, it limits your neutral cards to only Chaos. So now you're losing the Mechanicum and Imperial Army decks as well. And if you don't have all the cards to go along with it, it sort of blocks what you can do with these guys. And the White Scars, I really like White Scars. I play them quite often in the ladder, but they're not the strongest, and they need very specific cards and to play in a very specific way as well. So they're quite fun. If you want something a little bit of a high skill challenge, these guys are okay. But I don't think they will be the best fit for a new starter. And lastly, on the crate list will be the Caliban crate, which we got the Night Houses, the Dark Angels, and the Caliban guys as well. So with this one, it's okay, it's good. But Dark Angels requires legendaries and not a super easy faction to play. Similar to the Caliban guys as well. Now they're both very decent factions on their own, but not necessarily the most beginner friendly ones in terms of how you play and how you make them competitive. and a little bit of a card dependent faction as well, especially Dark Angels. Whereas the Knights, they are very tricky to play with. If you have noticed on my meta report video, I talk about it as well, that on high Terra the Knights on average have 60% win rate, and they are quite popular as well, whereas on low Terra they are below 50%. This is mainly because they are a very high skill faction in terms of the combos you have to do with them, the cards you should play, and overall how you play it. I don't recommend Night Houses until you get a good knowledge of the game, but they are one of the strongest factions in the game available at the moment. There is one more crate missing here that is not out yet. Basically, the Sister of Silence, Agents of the Sigillite, and the Imperial Fists that should be coming at the end of this event, 7 days from the recording of this video. Now these guys, obviously they're quite new. I haven't tested them fully myself, but in my opinion, this is one of the stronger, will be one of the stronger crates. Now, Sister of Silence and Agents of Sigillite, they are very good, and at the moment they are dominating the ladder. If you look at the top 50 players, these two factions will be the most played one amongst the top 50 ranked players at the moment of recording this video. Imperial Fists, I don't think they're that much competitive. However, all three of these factions, maybe except for a little bit of the Sister of Silence, they are extremely card dependent. You need very specific cards, and they do require a good game knowledge as well. Now bear in mind, they are very strong cards, so I will put them sort of the 4th spot probably in the list after the Cult crate, but they are a high skill cap. The only reason I'm putting them that high is you do get 2 extremely good factions that are dominating the ladder at the moment. And to finish up with, you do have the cosmetics crate. Now, do not ever purchase cosmetic crates. I purchased one. I believe I was drunk when I did it, so I do regret that decision. But you do not need cosmetics. Obviously, if you like a cosmetic, when they're on the store, if you have spare gems, just buy it. The problem with this is you're spending all that money where you could be spending on the cards, and it's simply not worth it. And you don't need it either. I mean, I didn't have a single card back until I was around 2,800 rank points, or close to 3,000, around there. You don't necessarily need cosmetics. Obviously, if you like something, buy it on the shop, makes it easier, because this is quite random, and you're also getting lots of quotes and lots of sort of the profile section over there as well, so the card back's also not guaranteed on top of it. Now, hopefully this guide will be helpful to you guys, and if you have any questions, please feel free to send me a message and comment below. Remember, every like and comment to this video will be returned as a single bolter shell to be used against traitors on Iswan 3. Emperor protects, stay safe, and see you next time.